Talent blooms when you stop relying on motivation. 7 Insights on the Spring Mind left by genius mathematician Kiyoshi Oka. Why are we betrayed by the mirage of motivation? Living in the modern era, we are caught in an ironic paradox where our pursuit of new stimuli and momentary motivation exhausts our brains and dries up our fountain of thought. Believing that thrilling excitement is the seed of creativity is, in reality, merely an entrance into a loop of shallow thinking. The more we rely on motivation, the more we perceive lost time as an enemy called stagnation, eventually burning ourselves out with impatience. There once was a solitary genius who astounded the world by solving historical, notoriously difficult problems in Western mathematics one after another, all by himself, Kiyoshi Oka. His achievements were so monumental that in the West, it was suspected that Kiyoshi Oka is not a real individual, but a pen name for a group of mathematicians. However, what drove him was neither cold logic nor forceful passion. At the abyss of his mathematics lay a serene state of mind called the spring mind, haru no kokoro, deeply rooted in Japanese emotion. Engaging in the most intellectual small talk in Japanese history, and superimposing the truth of mathematics onto the hearts of Menyoshu poets and Matsuo Basho, his philosophy offers a warm prescription for us, exhausted by efficiency-centricity, to breathe life back into our true intellect. Insight 1. Discard excitement and nurture quiet curiosity. To heighten creativity, we tend to seek a sizzling heat like summer. However, from a neuroscientific perspective, strong stimuli and excitement drastically narrow the brain's field of vision, triggering a biological defense response that prioritizes immediate reactions. In this state, the intellectual leaps that connect distant concepts cannot be expected. Oka preached, imagination is inherently the act of reconnecting things that are apart, and in this moment, excitement is actually a hindrance. What is truly necessary for profound thought is not a bouncing excitement, but a softly warming disposition like the spring sunlight. A quiet curiosity, like admiring a violet blooming in a field. In this state, the brain slowly scans a wide area, quietly beginning to rearrange seemingly unrelated fragments of memory. Although the surface momentum may be weak, underneath, much deeper roots of thought are growing powerfully. Insight 2. Use nostalgia rather than novelty as a criterion for judgment. We constantly place value on the latest trends and uncharted novelty. However, in Kiyoshi Oka's philosophy, the true standard of judgment lay in nostalgia, natsukashisa. The nostalgia referred to here is not merely a reminiscence of the past. Neuroscientifically speaking, it refers to a state where long-formed neural circuits resonate in the same place with a new stimulus. That feeling of falling exactly into place that occurs when an internal, long-standing question resonates with the object before your eyes is the very compass pointing the way forward. Even when new buds appear in the spring, the roots have continued under the soil throughout the winter. The pursuit of novelty that chases only surface changes forces a war of attrition where you must start from a blank slate every time. However, an exploration centered on nostalgia possesses the power of continuity, where accumulated pasts propel the present. It is an honest form of intellect connected to the true heart, magakoro, stripped of false decorations, as preached by Norinaga Motori. Insight 3. Do not proceed all at once, deepen the roots of thought through repetition. Valuing efficiency, we rush to get things done in a single, prolonged burst of concentration. However, what the brain needs to build robust and stable circuits is not the length of time, but the number of repetitions, how many times you return to the subject. Just as a flower does not fully bloom overnight, intellectual maturity inevitably requires accumulation across days. Rather than straining to understand everything at once, repeat it many times over short periods. By doing so, during the night while we sleep, the fertile soil of the unconscious organizes information and constructs new connections. A thin bridge of thought built the day before feels like a natural, wide path the next morning. This cross-day repetition is the most reliable technique for drawing inspiration from the deep layers unreachable by consciousness. Insight 4. Prepare the emotion before thought. In Oka Kiyoshi's philosophy, the most original perspective is that logic is not the core of mathematics, but merely its superficial skin. He declared, in the human mind, emotion moves first, and thought follows. The relationship between thought and emotion is akin to that of a bud and the soil. If the soil is dried up with anxiety and impatience, or muddied by a desire for fame, the bud of intellect cannot grow straight. Only when the soil of a moist, calm emotion is prepared can thought grow upwards at a natural angle. Before starting to think about something, quietly ask yourself what color your heart is right now. Calm the rough waves and regain a gentle emotion like a spring stream. Resting your thought upon that silence is the only path that leads to essential conclusions. Insight 5. Don't seek a perfect environment, sharpen the fineness of perspective. If you start blaming your inability to concentrate on the environment, such as noise or inadequate tools, you wander into an endless labyrinth. Oka proposed that adjustments to the environment should be cut short after one try, and thereafter, all effort should be focused on how far you can narrow your internal focus. He practiced a method of deconstructing the subject into its smallest units, pouring everything solely into this one fraction or this one diagram. It is like drastically narrowing the aperture of a camera lens, not vaguely capturing a wide landscape, but focusing only on a single flower by the roadside, beautifully blurring everything in the background. If you narrow down the subject extremely finely, the mind's depth of field becomes shallow, and surrounding noise physically cannot enter your consciousness. It is precisely in imperfect environments that the courage to sharpen the fineness of your perspective is needed. Insight 6. Discard others' evaluations and idealize the quality of the question. External evaluations that demand ease of understanding or speed significantly degrade the quality of the question. If evaluation is prioritized, one unconsciously chooses only shallow questions that yield easy answers. The advice Kiyoshi Oka gave to Heisa Hironaka, a later Fields medalist, is incredibly symbolic. When Hironaka initially tried to impose limiting conditions to make a problem easier to solve, Oka dismissed it entirely. Do not impose limits, rather, paradoxically, you should set a more idealized, difficult problem and solve that. Following this teaching of paradoxical idealization, Hironaka removed the limits and conquered the impregnable peak of the resolution of singularities in algebraic varieties. Do not be misled by short-term results, hold a deeply idealized question worth spending your life asking. The deeper its source, the more the experiences flowing into it later will become a rich, great river, carrying you to places no one has ever reached. Insight 7. Leave slight dissatisfaction before you are exhausted. Many people continue working until they consume all their energy and burn out. However, if the brain remembers a state of total exhaustion as pain, resuming the next day transforms into a heavy obligation. The secret to keeping the cycle of creativity turning infinitely lies in strategically putting your pen down while allowing the quiet satisfaction of having progressed this far today to coexist with the small dissatisfaction of wanting to see what happens tomorrow. By intentionally pausing with spare energy, the unconscious circuits are not closed, they quietly continue to work even while you sleep, holding on to the suspended question. Turn this dissatisfaction into a bridge to tomorrow. This is the aesthetics of intellectual interruption, allowing you to stand at the entrance of exploration every morning with a light step, unaffected by waves of motivation. Conclusion: a quiet season of spring for your heart. Kiyoshi Oka loved the Minyoshu and Basho's haiku as the greatest reference books for mathematics, and he valued Norinaga Motori's true heart because they most purely preserved the emotion at the center of humanity. Stripping off the armor of logic and efficiency, the foreign heart, Karagakoro, and striving to connect deeply and emotionally with the world was the true identity of this genius's creativity. Treating the ups and downs of motivation like changes in the weather, and simply continuing to walk your chosen path dispassionately on both sunny and rainy days. The process of warming the question with quiet curiosity, without seeking dramatic changes, will deeply connect your existence to the world. Tomorrow morning, will the first question you face be a simple one aimed at gaining someone's approval? Or will it be a nostalgic, pure spring question for your life to resonate deeply with the world?